Hey everyone, how's it going? Brian here with another Java game programming tutorial. So the last time we left off, we changed our array list of our enemies to our copy on write array lists. But unfortunately, there's still a glitch with our null pointer exceptions. I don't know if we'll see it here or not, but basically, we're going to start this episode by fixing two quick bugs in our game. I guess the bugs aren't quick, our fixing process is quick. This is actually the second time I'm recording this episode. I recorded it just before this one, and about 20 minutes in, my capture software crashed. So hopefully this goes extra smooth, because I just recorded it, and now I'm going to do it again for realsies. Anyway, we're not getting the error this time, which is unfortunate. I wish you guys could have seen it, unless maybe if we get a little bit lucky here. Basically what happened, there we go. We get a null pointer exception, and if we track it down to our tower class at line 69, let's go ahead and do that. Tower line 69, we can see that it's inside of our calculate angle method. And on line 69 specifically, what are we looking at? Well, we probably don't have a problem with the inbuilt math functions, so that leaves our target. Most likely the null pointer exception is coming from our target, meaning that our target doesn't actually exist when we call this method. So that's an easy fix. Like I said, we have two easy fixes in this video. Let's go to our update method here. And you can see our calculate angle actually has no protection around it, you could say. There's nothing checking to see if we're targeted or not right before we do it. It's just kind of floating here in our update method. So we could fix it a couple ways. The first way is we could just say if targeted, and that would fix it. But we're not going to do that. We're going to do it something that looks a little bit more complex, but actually is a little bit more helpful in the long run. Because up here we're already checking if we're targeted or not. So I don't want to do two checks to say if we're targeted in the same method. It doesn't really make any sense. So here it says if we're not targeted, then acquire a target. Else, and we're going to change this to a open bracket and move the shoot method right up here. And then right before that, we can say angle equals calculate angle and get rid of this shoot call right here. So now we're saying if we're not targeted, find a target. Otherwise, or else, if we are targeted, then we can do our calculate angle and shoot our target. So it's just a way to combine this right here and this right here, which both require a if targeted statement into one if else, as opposed to two separate if targeted statements. So that's the first easy fix. I'm not sure, it took us a while to actually get it to work the first time, so you're probably not going to notice if the bug's gone, but rest assured that that should take care of that null pointer exception if you were facing that before. So next thing we're going to do is another quick easy fix here in the wave class. And I can definitely show you what this is all about. If we put two towers on the map here, you can see that once they kill the first enemy, the wave kind of doesn't begin or end. Before this next one dies, a third one comes out, and then before this one dies, a fourth one comes out. And so there's no real waves whatsoever. In fact, if we go look at our console right here, we're supposed to say every time we start a wave, beginning wave 1, and it never ended. Even though we killed 5 or 6 enemies with 2 enemies per wave, we still never got past wave 1. And so why is that? It's because ever since the last episode, we're now removing enemies from our list when they die, which means our list is never actually growing. I mean, it is in a sense where we start with 0, then 1, then 2, but by the time we kill the first guy, it's back down to 1, then we kill the second guy, it's down back to 0, so we're never actually reaching the limit to start a new wave. So that's an easy fix here. We just need to make one more variable, so enemies per wave. After that, put enemies spawned. You can name it what you want. I'm naming it that because we start with a spawn method right here. We already have one there. So after enemies per wave, just say this.enemies spawned equals 0. And when we spawn an enemy, we can say enemies spawned plus plus. And finally, instead of checking the size of our array list, which is always dwindling because we're removing enemies from it, we can just check enemies spawned. So let's go ahead and try that now. Put our 2 towers there. And now we should not get a third enemy until both of these enemies are dead. So there's the first one. And you can tell it works, and as soon as the second enemy dies, we start a new wave as shown in the console here. So that's 2 easy bugs out of the way in the first I don't know how long it's been, maybe a minute, 2 minutes. The rest of the episode is kind of complicated. We are going to make it so that our different towers have different projectiles, because obviously right now in our game, all of our towers have the same. I can't actually afford a ice tower, but all of our towers have the same ice ball right now. And I mentioned a couple episodes back, either last week or the week before, that I wanted to kind of think of a good way to make it so that each tower is a different projectile assigned to it. And you guys came up with some great suggestions in the comments, and I'm actually going to build off of some of those. The one I like the best is kind of similar to what I was thinking, but a little bit different, so I'm going to try and combine those and make a good way to put this in our game. And I'll leave a kind of shout out in the description to thank those who suggested some things in the comments. So let's go ahead and go over here, and the first thing we're going to do is make a new enumerator for our projectiles named projectile type. And this is just a way to keep it really nice and uniform. So we already have tower types and tile types, and projectile types is kind of the same thing except for projectiles. In fact, we can actually just copy our entire tower type here, getting a little bit lazy, and paste it into here, and just replace tower with projectile right there and right here. So now we have no more errors, but obviously this is not set up for projectiles. So let's get rid of all of these right here and replace them with, I'll name the first one Cannonball for that little gray ball. And we're going to need a texture for it, which I believe is called Bullet for me. And then a damage, which I'll do 10, and a speed of, say, 500. And our second projectile here is going to be Ice Ball. Quick load, projectile. Make sure you use the correct texture names for your bullets here, or your projectiles. And for the damage, I'll do 6, and the speed, I don't know, 450, I guess. And let's change this from textures to just texture. We don't need range on our projectiles, so just damage. And we can change firing speed to speed. And last but not least, we're going to update our constructor down here. So texture, texture, int damage, and float speed. And there we go. We now have a very simple projectile type enumerator. So the next step obviously is to kind of incorporate this enumerator into the game. And the way I think is the best way to do this is to go to our tower type enumerator. I mentioned this a few episodes back, but I wasn't sure if this was the way we're going to do it, but I think it is now. So inside each of these tower types, we're going to include a projectile type. So that way when you pass, like, say, the Cannon Ice tower type, it also includes all the data such as speed and texture and damage for the ice ball. So in Cannon Ice, we're going to type projectile type dot ice ball, and for the other two, we'll do cannonball. Projectile type dot cannonball. Did I spell that wrong? Projectile type dot cannonball. What's wrong? Capital. And forgive me if I'm repeating this because, as I said, I recorded this episode twice, so I can't exactly remember what I said last video and what I said this video as far as the recordings go. But my plan for this episode was to fix the 2 easy bugs at the beginning, and now we're kind of like blazing through. We're going to change a bunch of classes to make it so that our towers have different projectiles. So what I'm planning is next week, or next episode after this one, which is available right now if you're a patron, of course. What I'm going to do next time is spend an entire episode kind of going back through what we've done the last 5 or so episodes and kind of catching everything up and catching everyone up so that, to make sure that everyone understands exactly what we're doing here. So that might involve going through and commenting all of our code, or not all of it, but a good portion of it. So hopefully you guys know that you can add comments to your code like this with 2 slashes, and it doesn't actually affect the code at all. The computer doesn't read it, doesn't run it. It's kind of just for organization. So what I'm trying to say is we're going to be changing a lot of classes this video, And I'm going to try and like get it all done in one video so that by the end of this video, we have multiple towers with multiple projectiles. Or, you know what I mean, multiple towers, each with their own projectile. So in order to do that, we're going to go kind of quick. I'm not going to go super in depth, but I will go into more depth next week. So just follow along this week. It's going to be a little bit hectic. So we have errors here, and I don't know why. Oh, I do know why. No, I don't. I don't know why. Oh, I do know why. I got distracted by my own talking. So we just need to include in the constructor a place for our projectile type. Just like so, except spelled correctly. And we need to make a variable for it to hold it. I'm going to put it right after the texture to keep it in order. And then we need to set it. Okay, so we made a projectile type enumerator, and we've included that enumerator instead of our tower type enumerator. And next is to kind of extract that data from the tower type and make use of it in our game. So let's go ahead and go to our tower class first off. We're going to need to change some stuff in here. The first thing we're going to change was a suggestion by a couple different people. We're going to make our shoot method abstract. And this was suggested originally probably a few episodes back in the comments, and I kind of put it off because I thought we could do without it. But basically what we're going to do here is make it public abstract void shoot, and we'll take an enemy for our target in here. And an abstract method, you can see it's different. It's almost like we're declaring a variable, except we're declaring a method. So if you tried to put something in here, it wouldn't let you. Because if it's abstract, you cannot have a body. Abstract methods do not specify bodies, what it says. So we can just put a semicolon here, and what we're saying is everything that extends the tower class has to make their own version of the shoot method. So that's just a way to make sure that our ice tower and our, Canaan red, Canaan blue, all of their own custom shoot method in there. In fact, we'll get an error if we don't. So since we're right here, the next change we should make is, as you can see in our shoot method, we just got rid of our time_shot equals 0 call. So we should put that somewhere else. Here we can't call shoot without an enemy, so we'll just put that in there. Target time/shot shoot blah 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 blah, and we'll put it. Yeah, okay. We'll put brackets around this, and we'll set it right here. Time since last shot equals 0. And now let's go up to the top of our tower class and let's change some stuff. First off, let's make our array list of projectiles public instead of private, so we can access that from our subclasses. And let's go to our tower cannon blue now. Tower type, start tile, blah, blah, blah. So let's make our shoot method because we need to. So at override public void shoot takes an enemy. We're going to take our projectile list from the superclass, which we just made public, and add a new projectile cannon. What's it called? Oh, we need to make a class for it. We need to make a class for our cannonball. So projectile cannonball. And I believe we can copy our ice ball class and name it cannon ball and cannon ball. And for damage, we just can not slit on the enemy. Alright, so back to our tower cannon blue class. Now that we have a cannonball class, we're gonna make a new projectile cannonball. And we actually need to make this different. So instead of texture, target, float, X, let's start with the actual projectile class, the superclass. So in here, we haven't implemented our enumerator yet, or enum. I keep calling it enumerator, or enum. So let's do that. So we don't need a texture anymore, and we don't need damage, and we don't need speed, because that's all inside of our enum. So let's replace all this stuff here with a projectile type named type, and after that we'll do an enemy named target, a float for our X and our Y, and of course an int for our width and our height. And we could set this dot texture equal to type dot texture, this dot speed equal to type dot speed, this dot damage equal to type dot damage. Looks good, huh? We're definitely gonna need to change some more stuff in here, but for now let's leave it like that, and let's update the subclasses of the projectiles to kind of mirror that. In fact, we can just copy these arguments right here and use them over here. And then we'll pass to the super our type, target, x, y, width, height. I'm gonna drink some water real quick because talking for 30 minutes and then doing a re-recording of the video is making me a little bit raspy. So give me 1 second here. All right, that's a little bit better. So we have super, target, x, y, width, and height. And let's go to our projectile cannonball and do the same thing. We can just paste this again here. And again, do our type, target, x, y, width, height. And now that that's taken care of, let's go back to our Tower Cannon Blue class. We're making a cannonball, and the first thing is a type. So for that, we can get our super type if it's public, which it's not. We can do this two different ways. We can either make a variable inside of this class called private tower type, and don't type this yet, tower type type, and then we can get access to the type like that. But I think it'd be better to just make a public type instead of our main tower class, our abstract class, because that's the last typing we need to do in every single other subclass. So up here, below our projectiles, make a public tower type type, and just set this dot type equal to type. Easy enough. And we can get rid of this right here, which I just typed. Type, 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 type. Okay. So now we can do super.type.projectile type. And then we need a target, which we need to make public. Super.target. Let's go to make that public in our tower class. Right here. Public enemy number 1. And after our enemy is, I believe, XY width height. Let me check. XY width height, yep. So for X, we can say super.getX. For Y, it's super.getY. And this will spawn at the top left corner of our towers, but let's just do it the quick and dirty way right now. For width and height, again, quick and dirty, let's do 32 by 32, and just try to get this in the game and working. Then we can go back and kind of revise this. Make sure you have the correct amount of parentheses there. And what's the issue here? Cannot be resolved to a type. Oh, it's because it's projectile, not project. Obviously. Okay. So now we have our Tower Cannon Blue shooting a projectile cannonball. The next step is to get our Tower Cannon Ice, or our, where is it? Tower Ice, to shoot the other thing. We can actually just copy and paste this from our Cannon Blue. So take the shoot method here and just copy it, and go to our Tower Ice, and put it in there. And we just need to change it from projectile cannonball to projectile ice ball. And I think that's actually it to change it. Yeah, we can change the type of projectile it is. Right? I believe so. Yeah. Sure, why not? Well, we'll find out. So we don't have any errors, but I feel like we're missing some more stuff. Let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. Oh, Tower Cannon. We should probably just delete this class. We don't really use it anymore, but for funsies, we'll update it. We'll just comment this out. Okay. So I feel like we're definitely missing something, but there's no errors. Let's go and run this and see what happens. And actually first, let's go to our player class. And instead of starting with 50 cache, I'm going to start with 200, just so I can build some more towers and test it. And let's play. So there's one. What does it shoot? The cannonball, that's good. They're smaller than normal. And remember, they start at the top left now. Also, the speed's kind of messed up. But anyway, the real test here is if our other tower does the other projectile. Which it does, and it slows it down too. So look at that. We now have two separate towers with two or with their unique projectiles. So this doesn't slow down the enemy at all. It just hits it and it keeps going. But our other tower does slow down the enemy. So if we hit that like that, it just does damage, and that slows it down. Whew! That was intense, guys, but we got it working. Of course, that's obviously some tuning that needs to be done via the speed of the projectiles. I kind of just did it, whatever seemed like a good number. But now, like I said, next episode, we're going to go through all this and kind of reorganize it and, get it perfect. But we got it done somewhat. This was something I was putting off for 4 or so episodes now, but we finally got each of our towers with separate projectiles. So now, using all this background framework we've made, you can make your own towers with your own projectiles in just a couple steps. You make a new class for your tower, just like our tower cannon blue. You make a new class for your projectile, just like our projectile cannonball. And then you make a new type for each of those things in the tower type and projectile type classes. And after that, it's a real simple way to link them up. Let's go to our projectile. I have so many classes open. Our tower cannon blue. This is the entire class for our tower cannon blue. In fact, I can even delete some of these lines here to make it smaller. Within 15 lines is our entire tower cannon blue. So that's how easy it is for us to make new towers. You need to make a new class, a new projectile class, and then types for each of them, and all you need to do is just kind of link them up. So I realized this was really hectic, and my voice is fading because I've been recording for twice as long as I usually record now. But thank you guys for watching, and if you have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. But like I said, we're going to go back over it next week, so hopefully that answers any questions you have. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week on Indie Programmer.